The twin suns of Zirath cast long golden beams across the crystalline spires of the Clith capital. From high above, the city looked like a living jewel, glittering in every direction. The streets below were orderly, each citizen moving with a precise purpose, every motion seemingly synchronized. At the center of it all stood the Palace of Shards, the residence of the Clith Queen. Her rule was absolute, and her people both revered and feared her. Inside the throne room, the queen sat on a raised dais, her iridescent armor catching the light with every subtle shift of her body. Her eyes, large and luminous, scanned a holographic display floating before her. Reports from border scouts had come in, some unusual readings near the neutral sector. Humans, apparently, had crossed into Clith space. The queen's advisors, tall and spindly figures with segmented limbs, whispered amongst themselves. They feared the humans. They had heard stories of their unpredictability and ingenuity. Most Clith saw humans as fragile and chaotic. They were creatures of instinct, lacking the discipline and logic the Clith valued above all else. The queen, however, felt a spark of curiosity. There was something about these humans that fascinated her. A loud hum filled the room as a transport ship materialized within the palace hangar. Its hull was scratched and worn from long journeys, a stark contrast to the sleek, polished vessels of Zirath. The queen leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. This was no ambassador. This was a soldier. The doors opened and a single human stepped out. He was tall, wearing a standard-issue space uniform that had seen better days. His face was calm, but his eyes were alert, scanning the room with quiet intelligence. Captain Alex Ryland had faced battles across the solar systems, but stepping into the Clith capital felt different. Here, he was a stranger in a world that had never seen a human before, a world that might see him as weak. Alex walked steadily toward the queen's dais, his hands at his sides, his expression neutral. The advisors whispered in alarm, but the queen raised a hand to silence them. She wanted to see him up close to understand the human that had arrived on her world without permission. "Human," she said, her voice calm but commanding, echoing slightly in the high, angular chamber. "State your purpose." Alex bowed slightly, a gesture he had seen humans use to show respect, though he wasn't sure if it carried meaning here. "I am Captain Alex Ryland of the United Earth Forces. I come as a representative of humanity, seeking peace and dialogue." The queen tilted her head. "Peace?" she repeated, a note of skepticism in her tone. "You humans have a reputation for disorder. You have crossed into our space without invitation. How do I know you speak the truth?" Alex met her gaze steadily. "Because I have no weapons drawn, and I have no intention of starting conflict. I am here to understand, not to conquer." The queen's eyes flickered with something unusual, interest. Most Clith would never trust a human, but Alex had entered her world calmly, confidently, without fear. That alone was remarkable. "Very well," she said after a pause. "You will be observed. Do not make any sudden movements. The court will decide how to proceed." Alex nodded. "Understood." The court watched closely as Alex was guided through the palace halls. He noticed how rigidly ordered everything was. The placement of every object, the alignment of each guard, the synchronized steps of the Clith attendants. The entire society seemed designed to eliminate chaos. Alex found it fascinating. He had learned long ago that rigid systems often had weak points hidden in plain sight. As he walked, he observed the technology around him. The Clith devices were advanced but oddly specialized. They excelled at precision and repetition, but lacked the adaptability he had seen in human machines. He filed the observation away, knowing it might become useful later. Finally, he was brought to a chamber that looked like a strategy room. Holographic projections floated in the air, showing sectors of the planet, military bases, and patrol routes. Here, the queen usually met with her generals to plan operations. "Sit," the queen commanded. "We will discuss your purpose here." Alex obeyed, sitting on a sleek platform that adapted to his human shape. He noticed the Clith guard stiffen at his presence. Even here, surrounded by power, he remained calm. "Tell me, Captain," the queen began, "why should I trust a human? Why not treat you as an intruder and remove you from our space immediately?" Alex smiled faintly. "Because humans are not predictable, Your Majesty. We may be weaker physically, but we think differently. Sometimes unpredictability can be an advantage." The queen arched an eyebrow. Unpredictability is chaos. Chaos is weakness. Alex leaned forward slightly. Perhaps, but chaos also allows for creativity. It allows us to see paths others cannot. I believe this is something you will understand. Soon, the Queen studied him carefully. There was something about this human that made her uneasy. He was not just calm. He was observant, thoughtful, and daring. His confidence was not arrogance. He did not underestimate the Clith, nor did he fear them. That combination was rare among humans, and rarer still among any being she had met. Her advisors exchanged worried glances. They could sense the Queen's fascination, but they also felt a flicker of alarm. If this human proved more capable than expected, it could disrupt the carefully balanced order of their world. The Queen's voice cut through the silence. "Very well, Captain Ryland. You will remain here under observation. You may learn about our ways, but you will not interfere with our operations. Any attempt to do so will be met with immediate consequences." Alex inclined his head respectfully. "Understood, Your Majesty." Over the next few days, Alex was allowed to move through the palace and observe the workings of Zirath. He learned the customs, watched the interactions between Clith leaders, and even studied their advanced technology. He did not touch or alter anything, but he noticed patterns, small flaws in the system, predictable behaviors, and gaps that no Clith dared exploit. The Queen noticed his diligence. He asked questions that no Clith would ask, questioned assumptions, and proposed solutions that were unconventional but effective. She observed silently, intrigued despite herself. No human had ever approached her world with such insight and composure. One evening, as the twin suns set, casting long shadows across the palace, Alex stood in the balcony garden. The air was thick with the scent of alien flora, and the sky shimmered with colors he had never seen. The Queen joined him, her presence commanding yet less rigid than usual. "You are different from what I expected," she said, her voice softer, almost contemplative. Alex turned to her. "I'm only human, Your Majesty, but humans survive because we adapt. We find ways where others see none." She regarded him, her luminous eyes reflecting the last rays of sunlight. For the first time in centuries, the Queen felt something she had not expected: uncertainty. Not fear, but curiosity. This human could challenge her world in ways she had not imagined. As night fell over Zirath, the city glittered beneath the stars, and the Queen realized that the arrival of Captain Alex Ryland was not a threat to her people. It was a question of whether her understanding of strength, leadership, and intelligence was complete. And for the first time, she wondered, what could a human truly do next? The morning on Zirath began with the sound of chimes echoing through the crystalline towers. The twin suns reflected off the spires, casting patterns across the polished streets below. Citizens moved with the usual precision, their steps synchronized as though part of a greater rhythm. Yet in the palace, the atmosphere was tense. The Queen had spent the night considering the human Captain Alex Ryland. His calm demeanor and unusual intelligence intrigued her, but she could not let curiosity cloud her judgment. He was an unknown element in a world where every action had a purpose. Today she would test him. "Bring him to the strategy hall," the Queen commanded. Her advisors bowed, their segmented limbs clicking softly. The strategy hall was a place reserved for the most important military and political decisions. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing detailed maps of the planet and its surrounding sectors. Alex was escorted through the halls, his boots clicking softly against the polished floors. He had learned enough of the Clith language to communicate clearly, but he relied more on observation than words. Every detail mattered: the placement of guards, the timing of their steps, even the expressions the Queen allowed herself to show. When he entered the strategy hall, the Queen rose from her dais. Her iridescent armor shimmered in the light, and her eyes held a sharp, calculating glow. Around her, senior generals and advisors hovered, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. "Human," the Queen said, her voice carrying across the hall. "You have observed our ways for several days. You have learned quickly, but intelligence is not enough to survive here. Today I will test your judgment and adaptability." Alex stood straight, his gaze steady. "I am ready, Your Majesty." The Queen gestured to the holographic displays, which expanded to show a complex tactical simulation. Ships, ground units, and energy barriers moved across the map in rapid patterns. "This is the strategic grid challenge. Our most skilled officers have trained for years to anticipate each move, each variable. You will play against me. A murmur passed through the court. A human had never been given such an opportunity. Most Clith expected Alex to fail immediately, proving their assumptions correct. Failure will not harm you physically, the Queen continued, but it will demonstrate the limits of human thinking. Are you willing to proceed? Alex nodded. I am. The simulation began. At first he was cautious, watching how the pieces moved. The Queen's strategy was flawless, almost mechanical. She anticipated every possibility a Clith officer would consider. But Alex noticed patterns she did not realize she had formed, small tendencies in timing, sequence, and spacing that followed her own logic too predictably. He adjusted his approach. Instead of responding directly to her moves, he introduced elements she did not anticipate. He feigned weakness in certain sectors, drawing her units into traps. He combined defensive strategies with sudden, unconventional attacks that exploited the rigidity of her logic. The Queen observed silently. Her eyes narrowed. No human had ever manipulated her strategy with such skill. Each of Alex's moves was unpredictable yet deliberate, chaotic yet precise. Minutes passed, then hours. The court grew tense. Generals whispered among themselves, astonished and unsettled. They had never seen their Queen so challenged, and by a human no less. Alex realized that the Queen was observing not just the simulation, but him. She was learning, adapting. That meant he could not rely solely on human instincts. He had to anticipate her adaptation as well. He paused briefly, taking stock of the situation. Then he executed a move that shocked everyone. He sacrificed a key unit in the simulation, something no Clith would consider. In doing so, he created an opening that allowed him to encircle the Queen's forces and seize control of the simulated strategic point. The holographic display shimmered, indicating his success. The Queen's expression flickered, impressed and perhaps a little unsettled. For the first time, her strategy had been outmaneuvered. Interesting, she said softly, her voice carrying a note of respect. You do not play like a human should. Alex met her gaze. Perhaps human thinking is different, Your Majesty. We do not follow patterns blindly. We adapt, improvise, and sometimes we take risks others avoid. The Queen remained silent for a moment. She had underestimated this human's ability to blend logic with creativity. The advisors around her looked uneasy. Some whispered about human unpredictability being dangerous. Others quietly began to admire Alex's ingenuity. The simulation continued, but now the Queen adjusted her strategy, attempting to anticipate Alex's unconventional tactics. Yet he stayed one step ahead, finding openings that were invisible to even the most experienced Clith minds. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the simulation ended. Alex had succeeded, not by brute force or overwhelming strategy, but by thinking differently. He had demonstrated something the Queen had never expected, a human ability to adapt in ways her structured society could not. You have done well, the Queen said, rising from her seat. Her voice was calm, but there was an intensity in her eyes. You are not what I expected. You are unpredictable and yet effective. You may have lessons to teach me. Alex inclined his head. And I am eager to learn as well, Your Majesty. There is much about your world I wish to understand. The Queen studied him, weighing her options. In her mind, she considered the implications. If humans were capable of this much, they were not to be dismissed. Their adaptability, courage, and creativity could make them valuable allies, or formidable opponents. A sudden alert sounded from the palace communications. The border sensors had detected unusual movement near the neutral sector, ships approaching at high speed. The Queen's attention snapped to the displays. Alex observed the shift. His training had taught him to anticipate threats and act decisively. Your Majesty, he said, may I assist in analyzing this movement? The Queen's eyes flickered. Usually she would handle such matters herself. Yet she sensed that Alex could offer a perspective her own advisors might miss. Very well, she said. Show me what you can do. Alex leaned over the holographic interface, his fingers moving over controls with practiced precision. He analyzed the ship's trajectory, velocity, and formation. His mind quickly calculated possible outcomes, considering both Clith defensive tactics and potential weaknesses in the approaching fleet. The Queen watched in silence as Alex proposed a counter-strategy. It was bold, relying on unpredictable maneuvers and leveraging terrain that the Cleth usually ignored. Yet there was logic in it, a balance of risk and advantage that made sense only when combined with human intuition. Her advisors frowned. The plan was unconventional. It defied Cleth doctrine, but the Queen did not dismiss it. Instead, she nodded. "Implement your plan, Captain." Over the next hour, the Palace Command Center became a whirlwind of activity. Cleth units moved according to Alex's instructions, executing maneuvers they had never practiced. The approaching fleet, expecting predictable responses, was caught off guard. By the time the ships reached the neutral sector, the human strategy had already set the stage. The alien invaders were forced to retreat, unable to predict the coordinated defense that combined Cleth precision with human adaptability. The Queen watched the outcome, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke. "You have saved our border from potential disaster, human. Not through force, but through thinking differently. I did not expect this. I underestimated you." Alex straightened, meeting her gaze. "Sometimes, Your Majesty, the greatest strength lies not in power, but in perspective." The Queen considered his words. In all her years, no human had impressed her so deeply. He had challenged her authority not with rebellion, but with insight. Her advisors were silent, some hiding admiration, others hiding fear. "You have proven yourself today," the Queen said at last. "But this is only the beginning. Xyrath is a complex world. Challenges will come that test even your human ingenuity." Alex nodded. "I welcome the challenge." The Queen paused, studying him closely. She realized that humans were more than she had believed. Their unpredictability was not weakness, it was an asset. And for the first time, she wondered what else this human soldier might do next. As the sun set once more, casting long shadows across the crystalline towers, the palace hummed with quiet energy. The court whispered about the human who had outmaneuvered their queen, and the Queen herself contemplated a truth she could no longer ignore. Humans were capable of remarkable things, and this one had already begun to change her perception of their kind. The challenge had been met, but the game was far from over. Alex Ryland had arrived as an observer, but he had quickly become a participant in the world of Xyrath, testing limits, surprising the powerful, and proving that the human mind was as formidable as any alien technology. And the Queen knew that the next steps, whatever they might be, would require her full attention, for she had seen the first glimpse of human ingenuity, and it was unlike anything she had ever faced before. The palace on Xyrath was quiet in the early morning, bathed in the soft golden light of the twin suns. Citizens moved with the usual precision, but inside the palace the atmosphere was tense. Captain Alex Ryland had gained the Queen's respect after the strategic grid challenge, but the world around them was far from stable. A sudden alarm shattered the calm. Red lights flashed across the halls of the palace, and the low hum of energy barriers intensified. The Queen's advisors rushed forward, their segmented limbs clattering against the polished floors. "Your Majesty," one called, "unauthorized ships have entered the neutral sector. They are moving fast and in formation. It appears to be a coordinated attack." The Queen's eyes narrowed, her calm demeanor giving way to sharp focus. "How many ships?" she demanded. "Approximately 25, another advisor answered. "They are heavily armed and using evasive tactics designed to bypass our standard defenses." Alex stepped forward, his mind already analyzing the situation. "Your Majesty," he said, "I need access to your tactical control. I can help organize a response." The Queen studied him for a moment. Normally, such a request would be denied. No human had authority in her palace. Yet she had already seen his ability to think differently, to solve problems her own generals could not. "Very well," she said. "You will coordinate the defense, but know this. Failure is not an option." Alex nodded, moving to the central tactical console. The holographic displays lit up with images of the incoming fleet, showing their positions, speed, and trajectory. He quickly noticed patterns in their approach. Unlike the Cleth, who expected straightforward attacks, these ships used unpredictable maneuvers to avoid engagement until the final strike. "They are not acting randomly," Alex said aloud. "They are exploiting rigidity in your defensive grid. I can counter this, but we need to adapt quickly," the Queen observed, silently impressed. Her generals were frozen in indecision, unable to depart from standard protocols. Alex did not hesitate. He divided Cleth forces into small, flexible units, instructing them to move in ways that were not typical for their structured formations. He set traps using planetary terrain, energy fields, and decoys that leveraged the attackers' assumptions against them. The first wave of enemy ships approached. The Cleth defenses opened fire, but the attackers slipped through the initial barriers with ease. Alex adjusted the units in real time, sending some ships to intercept while others flanked from unexpected angles. Within minutes, the tide began to shift. The Queen watched, her expression unreadable. For centuries, she had relied on the precision of her trained officers. Watching a human coordinate her defenses with ingenuity, improvisation, and calm decisiveness was both shocking and exhilarating. Human tactics are unconventional, muttered one general. But effective, Alex did not respond. His attention was on the displays, calculating trajectories, energy outputs, and possible enemy strategies. He noticed the enemy had a hidden leader coordinating the attack, a rogue faction within the Cleth themselves, seeking to overthrow the Queen and destabilize her rule. "Your Majesty," Alex said, turning to the Queen. "This is not just an external threat. It is internal. They are using the attack to weaken your authority and test your control. We must act decisively." The Queen's eyes widened slightly. Betrayal from within was a danger she had not anticipated, yet she had faith in Alex's abilities. She had seen his skill in strategy, his ability to anticipate moves no Cleth could predict. "What do you propose?" she asked. Alex outlined a bold plan. He would divide the loyal Cleth forces into mobile units, drawing the rogue faction into a controlled trap. Using terrain decoys and precise timing, he would isolate the leaders and force their surrender. The Queen's advisors were skeptical. The plan was risky and relied heavily on trust in a human. The Queen, however, nodded. "Do it," she commanded. "We will follow your lead." Alex moved quickly. Cleth units responded to his orders with hesitation at first, then with growing confidence as they saw his instructions working. The enemy ships engaged, expecting routine defenses, only to be surprised at every turn. Energy barriers shifted in unexpected patterns. Units appeared where they were not anticipated, and traps activated that left the attackers scrambling. The battle intensified. Laser beams sliced through the skies and the low hum of engines filled the palace command hall. Alex remained calm, analyzing every movement, predicting every counterattack and adjusting strategies in real time. His human intuition complemented the Cleth precision, creating a combination the rogue faction had never faced before. Despite their numbers, the attackers began to falter. Alex's strategies exploited their rigidity, forcing mistakes that allowed loyal Cleth forces to gain the upper hand. Yet the rogue faction's leader remained elusive, coordinating attacks with a cunning that made victory uncertain. The Queen observed as her forces pushed back the attackers, but her concern grew. The rogue faction's objective was clear. They aimed for her, not just the city. Alex noticed this too. "Your Majesty," he said urgently, "they are trying to reach you directly. We must protect you, or the battle will be lost regardless of how we handle the rest." The Queen's voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. "Prepare my personal guard. I will remain in the command hall to coordinate, but you must lead the defense against the approaching enemy units." Alex nodded. "Understood." He quickly reorganized the units, creating a defensive corridor leading to the palace while setting traps along every predictable approach. His understanding of both human and Cleth tactics allowed him to anticipate the enemy leader's moves, staying one step ahead. The rogue faction's ships broke through the outer perimeter. A sudden explosion rocked the nearby crystal towers, sending shards into the air. Cleth soldiers shouted and scrambled, but Alex remained focused. "Stay calm. Follow the plan," he barked, projecting authority in a way no Cleth general could. Using a combination of energy barriers and decoy units, Alex funneled the attackers into a narrow corridor between the palace and a natural canyon. There he activated hidden traps that immobilized several ships, leaving their pilots exposed and vulnerable. The rogue faction's leader, a Cleth commander known for ruthless efficiency, attempted a direct assault on the palace. Alex anticipated this, positioning a small strike team to intercept while the Queen's personal guard shielded her. The battle became a tense dance of precision, timing, and ingenuity. Finally, in a decisive moment, Alex executed a maneuver no Clith would attempt. He used the environment, the jagged canyon walls and natural energy currents, to redirect a trapped ship's weapons back at the enemy. The rogue leader's vessel was disabled, forcing surrender. The remaining enemy ships, seeing their leader defeated and trapped, attempted to retreat. Alex directed loyal forces to block escape routes, ensuring a complete victory. As silence fell over the battlefield, the Queen emerged from the command hall. Her expression was calm, but her eyes shone with respect and relief. She looked at Alex standing among her soldiers, directing the aftermath with quiet authority. "You have done what no Clith could," she said softly. "You have defended my palace, saved my people, and exposed a threat that would have gone unnoticed. Your actions were unexpected." Alex nodded. "Your Majesty, I only acted to protect your people and your leadership. Predictability can be dangerous, but careful improvisation can turn the tide." The Queen studied him, understanding dawning in her eyes. Humans were not weak, chaotic creatures as many Clith believed. They were resourceful, courageous, and capable of thinking in ways even the most disciplined alien mind could not. The advisors approached cautiously, offering thanks and congratulations, but the Queen held up a hand. "This is not mere success of numbers or technology," she said. "This is the brilliance of a human mind. Captain Ryland has shown that strength is not only in power or precision, but in courage, creativity, and the ability to act when others hesitate." Alex felt a quiet satisfaction, but he did not smile. He knew the threat was neutralized for now, but the galaxy was full of challenges, and Xyrath would face many more tests in the future. For now, however, he allowed himself a moment to acknowledge the accomplishment. The Queen turned to him, her voice steady and commanding, yet with a new tone of respect. "You have proven yourself. From this day forward, you are no longer just a visitor in my world. You are a trusted strategist and perhaps an ally I cannot ignore." Alex bowed slightly. "I am honored, Your Majesty. I will continue to serve your people and work to protect this world." The twin suns set over Xyrath, casting long, shimmering shadows across the palace. The battle was over, but the events of the day had already changed the perception of humans forever. Alex had demonstrated that courage, ingenuity, and quick thinking could rival even the most disciplined alien minds. And the Queen knew, as she watched him move through the palace with quiet confidence, that humans were not to be underestimated. The next challenge would come, and when it did, she hoped they would be ready. But one thing was certain. Captain Alex Ryland had earned a place of respect in Xyrath, and the alien world would never view humans in the same way again. The morning light on Xyrath was sharp and bright, cutting across the crystalline spires of the capital. The city had begun to rebuild after the rogue faction's failed assault, but the threat was far from over. Despite the victory, the Queen remained cautious. She had learned that enemies could strike in unexpected ways, and that humans, for all their ingenuity, might still face dangers her people could barely imagine. Captain Alex Ryland moved through the palace corridors with steady purpose. He had spent the night reviewing defensive strategies, ensuring that every weak point in the city was covered. The Clith soldiers respected him now, not just for his previous success, but because he had earned their trust. Even the Queen's personal guard, wary of outsiders, had begun to follow his guidance without hesitation. But an urgent alert shattered the morning calm. The rogue faction, though defeated, had left behind hidden operatives. They had infiltrated the palace and were advancing toward the Queen's chambers. The alarms blared and energy shields flickered into place, but the Queen's position was threatened directly. Alex reacted instantly. "Your Majesty, move to the inner sanctum immediately," he shouted. His voice carried over the panic, directing soldiers to block the intruders. The Queen's personal guard hesitated. These were highly trained soldiers. Yet the intruders were cunning, attacking from multiple angles and using unconventional tactics to bypass barriers. Alex didn't wait for hesitation. He grabbed the nearest control panel and rerouted defense protocols, sealing some corridors while opening others to create traps for the intruders. The rogue operatives were clever, but they had not anticipated human improvisation. Alex anticipated their moves before they acted, predicting patterns of behavior that even Clith generals could not see. He instructed the soldiers to focus on slowing the intruders rather than engaging directly. forcing them into pre-planned zones where energy nets and containment fields could immobilize them. The Queen watched from her protected chamber, her eyes wide with amazement. She had underestimated how resourceful this human could be. He was no ordinary soldier. He was a strategist, a thinker, and above all, brave. Suddenly, one rogue operative broke through the defenses, rushing toward the Queen herself. Alex spotted him immediately. Without hesitation, he sprang forward, intercepting the intruder with a combination of hand-to-hand skill and precise use of energy restraints. The intruder struggled but was immobilized before he could reach the Queen. "Captain Ryland," the Queen said, her voice both relieved and astonished. "You risked your life to protect me." Alex helped restrain the operative and nodded. "Your safety is the priority, Your Majesty. If the leader of this faction had reached you, the palace would have fallen. We cannot take that risk." The Queen's advisors looked at Alex with renewed respect, some even silently acknowledging that he had acted with the courage of a true Clith hero. Despite being human, but the threat was not over. More intruders were moving through the palace using secret passageways Alex had not initially accounted for. He adjusted quickly, sending small teams to intercept while directing energy barriers to isolate corridors. His ability to think on the spot, combining observation with fast decision-making, made the intruders' progress nearly impossible. The Queen, impressed and anxious, finally decided to assist directly. She activated her personal energy shield and moved alongside Alex, demonstrating that she was not just a leader, but also a capable warrior. Together, Human and Queen coordinated a counterattack that combined human ingenuity and Clith precision. The battle reached a critical point when the rogue faction's leader appeared in the main hall, attempting to create chaos and seize control. Alex evaluated the situation instantly. The leader had strength, skill, and cunning, but he relied on predictable Clith strategies. Alex used that knowledge, setting a trap by feigning vulnerability. The rogue leader took the bait, moving into a position where both Alex and the Queen could strike effectively. In a synchronized maneuver, Alex and the Queen neutralized the leader, using a combination of physical skill, energy restraints, and environment manipulation. The remaining operatives, seeing their leader defeated and trapped, surrendered immediately. Silence filled the palace. The Queen turned to Alex, her eyes reflecting admiration and newfound respect. "You have done what I did not expect," she said. "You have saved not only me but the palace itself. You are more than a soldier. You are a strategist, a protector, and a force of ingenuity." Alex bowed slightly, humbled by the praise. "I acted only to protect your people, Your Majesty. Your leadership is what inspired the defense. I merely applied what I know in the moment." The Queen regarded him thoughtfully. "Your methods are unconventional, yet they succeed where tradition alone would fail. Perhaps it is time we consider new approaches to defense inspired by your human perspective." Alex smiled faintly. "Sometimes the unexpected solution is the best one. Rigidity can be a weakness just as creativity can be a strength." The palace staff, witnessing the events, began to see humans differently. No longer fragile or limited, they recognized that humans could be courageous, adaptable, and remarkably effective in critical situations. The Queen herself, once skeptical and cautious, realized that her people could learn from human ingenuity. That night, the palace was quiet, the battle over, but the impact of Alex's actions resonated deeply. He had proven that courage, quick thinking, and adaptability could triumph over brute force and predictability. The Queen, reflecting on the day's events, knew that the perception of humans had forever changed in her eyes and in the eyes of her court. Alex, standing on the balcony overlooking the city, watched the twin moons rise. He understood that the threat had been neutralized for now, but the galaxy was vast and challenges would continue. Yet for the first time, he felt that humans could not only survive in this world but could make a real difference. And the Queen, observing him from the palace hall, realized something profound. Humans were capable of extraordinary heroism, and this one human had already begun to reshape her understanding of what strength truly meant. The morning after the battle, Zyrath awoke to a calm city, yet the energy in the palace was palpable. The citizens, now aware of the human captain Alex Ryland's role in defending their world, whispered about his ingenuity and courage. The Queen prepared a public ceremony, one that would honor both Alex's actions and the human species he represented. The grand hall was filled with Clith nobles, generals, and advisors. Holographic displays above the dais projected the events of the past days, battles, strategies, and decisive moments where Alex had intervened. The crowd watched in awe as the human who had once been underestimated was shown outmaneuvering their most skilled generals and protecting the Queen. The Queen stepped forward, her armor shimmering in the light. Her eyes, calm yet commanding, swept across the assembly. "Today," she began, "we recognize not only the defense of our capital but also a remarkable individual whose actions have reshaped our understanding of strength and courage." Alex stood respectfully, flanked by Clith guards who had once doubted him. He had learned much about their world in a short time, but he remained humble, aware that the honor was not just for himself but for humanity as a whole. "You, Captain Ryland," the Queen continued, "have demonstrated that intelligence, courage, and adaptability are as powerful as any technology or weapon. You have shown us that humans, though different from the Clith, possess qualities that are extraordinary," she gestured, and a ceremonial energy medallion was presented to Alex. Its design was intricate, a symbol of unity and respect. The crowd erupted in quiet applause, acknowledging a human's place of honor in Zyrath. Alex accepted the medallion, bowing slightly. "Your Majesty, I am deeply honored. I acted not for recognition, but to protect your people and preserve peace. Humans and Clith alike can achieve great things when we work together." The Queen's eyes softened, reflecting admiration and understanding. "From this day forward, humans will be regarded not as fragile outsiders but as allies, thinkers, and strategists. Your courage has earned a place in our history and hearts." The ceremony concluded, but the impact of Alex's actions continued. Clith leaders began re-evaluating their strategies, incorporating elements of flexibility and creativity inspired by human thinking. The Queen herself considered reforms in her governance, realizing that rigidity, though efficient, could limit potential and adaptation. Alex spent the following days assisting in planning and training, sharing insights into human strategy, teamwork, and adaptability. He observed that while the Clith excelled in precision, humans excelled in improvisation and innovation. Together, they began to combine strengths, creating a formidable partnership between species. One evening, standing on the balcony with the Queen, Alex looked out over the twin moons of Zyrath. "Your people have a remarkable world," he said softly. "I am honored to be here and to have contributed in some small way." The Queen turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "And you, Captain Ryland, have taught me something invaluable. Strength is not only in order and power but also in courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to act when others hesitate. Humans are extraordinary," Alex smiled faintly. "We survive because we adapt, Your Majesty. We act when necessary and we find ways to overcome the unexpected." The Queen,